today I wanted to talk, first of all, thinking about AI. I've kind of used this analogy quite a bit, is AI as a calculator. And one of the things about a calculator, so especially not just like, those really, really old Texas Instrument data math from the 1970s, but thinking about like a graphing calculator. This is the graphing calculator I used in college. So this is my calculus graphing calculator. I kind of have this framed and put up in my office just so I can remember back when I could do math. And one of the things about these graphing calculators is that they're really useful, right? You can punch in, you can get any sort of mathematical equation or problem that you want. You can do calculus with it. That's what I was using this for. And I look at this calculator now, and yeah, I can do multiplication and division, but I really can't do any of the other things that this is built to do because I don't really know how to do that because I forgot, because I haven't spent 20 years. And I think that's one of the things with AI as well. We kind of sometimes go into it thinking like, oh, it's this calculator, we can do whatever we want. But I think there's some prompt engineering or some prompt strategies that can really help you get the most out of them. And then you can only get those by playing with them, by doing them. You can only use a graphing calculator if you're actually using that graphing calculator. Otherwise, you forget how to use it. So I think today, before we get started playing with it, I wanted to talk a little bit about those prompts that we give. And so I was talking to the Writing Center about this actually, and had some really good conversations. And one of the things that they were asking me is like, oh, Lane, I've heard that it's a really good idea to give the AI model an identity, to say, you are a travel agent, and I'm going to do. And so it's like, okay, that is. And so we were talking about, we're reading some readings on this, and that ChatGPT and other AI tools are designed to work intuitively, but they produce much better results if users adopt a more deliberate workflow, one that can be broken down into 4 steps. So this is kind of the classic approach that has often been discussed. Well, okay, classic is in 2023. Contextualize that a little bit. But looking at this classic approach of 1, give the model an identity. You are a travel agent. 2, be as specific as possible in your request. 3, guide the AI tool through every step of the process. Be very literal and deliberate in what you are saying to the AI. And then don't be afraid to refine your results. Don't think of it as a Google search. Oh, I didn't find it. Find a couple of iterations, I'm done. Keep on pressing it, keep on trying new things. Now, this I think is largely still very useful. This idea of prompt engineering, developing the perfect prompts and utilizing it. I think for me, though, what I've been discovering is I've kind of moved a little bit away from this. I still say, oh, I'm going to give the model an identity. But instead of really being explicit, maybe, which is not a bad thing, but what I try to really do is refocus how I approach it, right? So I try to give the model identity, but I just try to think of it not as so much as like, you are a travel agent. I try to think of it as a travel agent. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not so much about, engineering the AI. It's already been pretty well engineered, but really re-engineering how we approach AI, how we think of AI, re-engineering ourselves. And I think that's the big key, and really thinking about, I am talking with an editor. I am talking with an instructional designer, and really framing your dialogue with it around your imaginary person that you're having an interaction with. I think this means saying please and thank you, not because the AI actually cares, because it changes how we approach what we're doing, right? We aren't just doing a Google search, right? We don't say, oh, thank you, Google, for finding this. But I think it can be helpful when we're having a conversation, because with a normal human being, we are having a conversation. Saying things like please and thank you, or just kind of using common, text, really kind of reframe and make your prompts more creative. And I think you find you're using more specific language. And I've tried this. I've tried a couple different scenarios. I've had it, play act as a mechanic for my car, and I found that when I was using kind of imagining, oh, I'm talking to my mechanic Dennis, and I'm just kind of going through the problems, and I would use more specific language because I was kind of in the frame. It was like, oh, I'm talking to Dennis over at Cedar Brigado. I'm going to type everything in. I kind of have a better idea of the conversation I'm going to have. So I think that was really helpful for me. And that was one of the things that I think it's really good to have these ideas, these prompt engineering steps in mind. But I would say it's not so much about trying to engineer the prompt, but it's like re-engineer ourselves and how we approach this tool, because it's not Google. It's something entirely different. Being specific is important, but I think if we can get into that framework, that makes that more possible. Right. So one of the first things that I've been doing with this is I was thinking, okay, how do I want to think of AI and have an identity. I want to think of it as a person. Okay, it's got a personal assistant, right? This is, yeah, okay, so AI is my personal assistant. What do I want AI to do for me? Well, let's say I'm teaching a course. I'm teaching a mathy course because I have my calculator with me. I'm thinking math. So I want it to design some spreadsheets and crunch some data. I also asked it to, like, one of the things I hate doing if I'm in a large course, but I want to break students up into groups. And I want those groups to rotate, and I want students to have roles within those groups. It's such a tedious chore to, first of all, take on my list of students, break them into groups, give them each roles, and then rotate that so no student gets the same role ever, no matter throughout the semester, even as we rotate. Yeah.
Kathy cannot let the people in the waiting room and the poor people in there. Can you just let us?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm actually not the co-host, Lane. You made another of your accounts co-host.
Oh, did I? You can only have one co-host?
Yeah.
How many you can only have one? Oh, that's a new thing.
Sorry to
that's
your
great.
train of thought. I just wanted to make sure we let people in.
It's easy to get derailed this train. All right. Thank you very much, Kathy, for letting me know. Okay, so personal assistant, identity, creating spreadsheets, creating groups. So 4 rotating sets of 5 groups of 10 students. Each students have a different role each time they're assigned the group. Oh, can I get AI to do that for me? I've heard you could get AI. Create rubrics and edit assignment instructions, and then develop quizzes. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. So here we go. Here is some of my prompts. So let me get my there it is, moved up to today. Okay, because that was okay. So here it is. Hi, and I put this prompt. I put this into like a text editor, so something easier to use, so I could kind of correct it more easily than I could within the chat itself. Plus, if you put it in a spread or a document, you can save these, and I often reuse them. One of the problems with these AI tools is that you can do lots of really cool things with them, but sometimes your prompts, you have a really good prompt, you can't search for it yet for your prompts within the sidebar on ChatGPT or the other tools. So you start getting a lot of prompts, it's sometimes nice to be able to search for them. So if you want to do that, you'd have to put them into a Google Doc or a Word document. So one thing, so what I've done is this is my prompt I typed into a Word document. And I said, hi, I'd like to create a spreadsheet for an introductory economics class. I want students to... Oh, hello. See.
$5. So I want on done.
And mute. There we go. Excellent. All right. I would like to see students to see a sample list of goods, column A with an initial price of those goods in the year 1980, column B. And then I want the next columns, the rate of inflation for every year from 1981 through 2010. The goal of the spreadsheet is for students to calculate the cost of good any given year. So to make room for those calculations, after column B, column C, so I'm being very explicit, right, in what I want it to do, should have a header 1981 with the inflation rate expressed as a percentage. Column D should have a header price 1981, but then an empty below that. Column E should have header 1982 with inflation rate expressed as a percentage. So this is kind of repetitive. I'm just trying to give it a prompt so that it can be used. So here we go. And here's what it came up with. This is literally what I got. So what it has, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see these data points. So it gives me a list of items. It gives me the price right here, that's not in dollars. And then it gives me the inflation rate, 10.3. It's not a percentage, but you can calculate off of that. So here we have inflation rate, 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85. The inflation rate is right. I looked them up. It's from the Federal Reserve they're right for broad consumer goods for these years. So 10.3%, pretty high inflation rate. 6, 3, 4, 5, 3.5. I looked up the initial price of these goods from 1980. I couldn't find this exact list and it wouldn't give it to me, but it was broadly accurate based on where I was finding other content. So I wasn't completely, I didn't check every one, which I'm not sure I would say that's, you know, if you're going to give this to students, I would check every one. But largely the inflation rate is accurate and this is broadly accurate right here. So it's giving me the content. Now, it took me probably 15, 20 minutes to build this all out because this wasn't the first try. The first time it gave it to me, it was a little off. It was a little bit wonky. I'm still working on the bugs on this. So this basically, I think, saved me no time after I got done checking everything because I don't trust it. So you can't trust it. So to build out the prompt and then recheck the data, I calculated about the same cost for me. So there's that. But it did run the calculations. I had another spreadsheet where it would do that. So you can get it to do these sort of spreadsheets and build them out for you. I think as you get better with prompt engineering, and if you save your initial prompts and just refine them over time, if you're going to do this a lot, I think you're going to be able to save time on that. But you always still have to check the work, which is something of a problem. So that's kind of a wash. All right. Let's look at the next one. This is another one that I hear a lot of stories about. And this is, first of all, I had it create a sample list of students for me with email addresses. And it did that just flying colors. So please provide me a list of sample students. I want email addresses, first name, last name. Perfect. So I had a sample list of students right away. It's like took me no time whatsoever to create that. Then I asked it, I keep going down. I want to break these students up into rotating groups. Each set will consist of 5 groups with 10 students, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very detailed, specific information. If you, one thing I was finding, and this is just to kind of help you out as you're doing this too, what I have heard is that it's better to copy and paste the spreadsheet directly into ChatGPT. So if you have an Excel spreadsheet with content, like a basic spreadsheet, copy and pasting that content into ChatGPT, like copying and pasting, will get you better results, which I do find on text analysis. So in spreadsheets, what will happen though, is that it will want to create this, which is, it's an OCR image, and it starts to scan off of that. And then it has all kinds of failures, like just cascading and never works. So what I have found is if you do copy and paste the spreadsheet into, even just, if you copy and paste it in, try to OCR it and then run off that, and it always fails. I just delete that. You can actually delete the little OCR thing out and just have it go off of that. It does a better job. I have found if you're using ChatGPT 4 that it actually does a fairly good job of ingesting the Excel spreadsheet if the Excel spreadsheet is very simple. If you start making complicated ones, that's where I notice failures all the time. All right.
You have a question.
Oh, great. Thank you, Kathy. Oh, you're awesome.
Just asking if privacy is a concern with the student name emails.
Oh, totally is. That's why I made them all up. Yeah, that's totally, yeah, you don't want to put real students with their email addresses into the data, especially not if they're associated with a class. So these are all made up. I asked them, the first step was, please create a sample list of like just random students' names. Give me an email address that I just put as like first letter, last name at UWM, just to kind of give me something that's sortable. So that was a great question, but yeah, that's why I would never put real students in. That's why I created just a random list assortment that it created for me. Yes, so privacy is a concern. Yeah. And yes, Mark, you are missing those bagels. All right. So long story short, too late for that perhaps. I filled this for about an hour and a half, and it would run the number. It would do these like calculations for me where it would randomly assort students and put them into 4 different groups that rotated, but it never did it right. It always would fail at one point or another. And that wasn't so much that like it failed in completing it, but it always would like make mistakes. So the other thing as well is that you'll notice that there is these, I'm analyzing these Python codes right here. And this kind of gives you an insight into how it's operating. So this was also fun to read as it was being produced because it just kind of go through and show its logic tree. And you can kind of see what it's doing. And that's where I think that people are successful at that are going through this Python. So you need Python. This is, again, like the graphing calculator, but they're using this dialog box right here to kind of understand where an error is popping up. And then they can kind of correct their Excel spreadsheets or change their prompt accordingly to that. So that's just something to keep in mind, that a lot of times we think AI can do anything. And maybe in 2 months it can, but today it can't create spreadsheets fairly well. Or if it does, it's going to take you about the same time as if you just did that in hand and went to the Federal Reserve and found those numbers yourself. So again, that was kind of a wash. I was like, oh, that's okay. But any data is good data. So that's why I was kind of interested in, like, how does this work? And now you don't have to spend 1.5 hours to 2 hours filling with this yourself. So let's go on to some things, though, that I thought was really amazing in what ChatGPT could do. So first of all, for the next one, then, what I was having it do is I wanted it to look at I wanted to create rubrics. And so and some sample instructions. So this is for a class I was teaching last year. And so this is still ChatGPT 4, but I wanted it to create a rubric, because one of the things I hate doing is creating rubrics. I really hate creating rubrics. This is the most boring thing I could possibly think of, but you still have to be sharp because it has to be very specific language all the time, right? So I wanted it to create some basic instructions based on some outline that I had, and then I wanted it to create a rubric off of that. And when it gave me the instructions, it does tend to be wordy, but it gave me a basic, like I had an outline of what I wanted, and then I wanted to create just a little bit more, like I wanted it to be a little bit more fluid flow, a little bit more clear. And so I just say, hey, here are my outline of my instructions for this type of assignment, for this type of a course. These are the logistics. These are my goals. Then I had it put those into proper words, text, and it did a fairly good job. You have to edit that, but that saved me a lot of time. And the other thing about that is that it allowed me to do this later at night when my brain is a little bit tired and I can't write. It's just hard to write. But I can edit, and that's no problem. But what was really helpful here is that it helped me work through, get this content out much more quickly than I would have been otherwise. The other thing is that sometimes I hate rubrics so much that I haven't used them consistently in the past. And nobody has to raise their hand if they've done that themselves. But this just made it so simple. I just asked it to take the instructions and then create a rubric, a 10-point rubric based on that. And again, there was small editing, but this took out the mind-numbing part of it, where you have to go through detail, and rewrite it just slightly different every time for every criteria. This took the hard part out, and then I could go through, and the final version that I put in Canvas was a little bit different, but it was basically the outline that they gave right there. So again, one of those things that is so important that we talk about at CETL for transparency and helping students understand what it is that you can be, and what it is that we need for this assignment to help them understand what your grading criteria are. Creating a rubric is so helpful for that, and this really takes some of that hard work out of it right there. You still have to do some editing, but the hard part of just the mind-numbing part has kind of been replaced. So this is how I was kind of thinking about some possibilities. Let me pause my slide as I kind of go back to my original slideshow. So this is some of the things that I was, and then also had it develop quizzes. So last one I want to give before I let you start playing with this yourself, is quizzes. So one of the things that, again, I think is really important for students is when you're giving content, especially in a lecture format, or even any kind of content as well, is to help students reflect on that, take some time. So you can have low stakes assessments during the classroom. You can do some knowledge checks. You can just have some accountability, content as well. So that if the lecture is like a flipped class and the lecture is online, you want to have some accountability where not only the students are reflecting on it, but they also have, hey, this is this part that's graded, is associated with this. It just helps them complete that. Sometimes making those quizzes can be difficult, or just, again, something that takes time. And so, this is split for me, resume share. So what I did right here is I went to ChatGPT and I took my notes from my PowerPoint slides that I had. Now, to do that, ChatGPT will ingest text really well. So if you just copy and paste, if you have lecture notes, you can just copy those, paste those from a Word document or Google Doc right into ChatGPT, and it'll work no problem. PowerPoints, though, if you try to copy them, it doesn't work. So what you have to do is you have to get it into a text file. Or you can upload the PowerPoint directly into ChatGPT. I haven't seen Copilot or Gemini do this yet. Though they say they can, but I haven't seen a functionality for that. Maybe that's the free, I've been using the free version for those. But for ChatGPT, you can upload the document and it'll analyze it. Though I didn't like it as well, the questions it asked, than when I had it ingest the text itself. But to get to ingest the text, what I found the easiest way, and these are instructions on the handout, is you first load it up to Google Documents or to Google Drive, and then you open up the PowerPoint or Google Slides, and then say save as text. So export it as a text document, and it'll strip out everything else and just leave the text. Take the text, copy that to ChatGPT, and then it will ask any questions you ask of it. And it asks fairly good questions as well. Like these aren't just verbatim, like taking what you have and then popping it in. It's looking at the context. So like you're going to see these are English Reformation. So I was teaching Reformation. It's English Reformation questions, and it was pulling stuff that wasn't in the actual slides itself, but was closely associated with it as well. So that there is some like, oh, hey, we were talking about Martin Luther the week before, and they're bringing back some questions because it assumes that you're going to have mentioned Martin Luther or Cranmer or John Knox in these conversations. And so again, I thought the questions and the choices were actually pretty decent for what I loaded into that. So I asked it for 10 multiple choice questions, 10 true or false questions based on, and then 10 discussion questions based on just the outline I put into it. So you scroll down, this is all my outline, and then I'll look at the chat as well. And so here we go. These are the questions. Again, I didn't like all of them, but some of them I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to pull these out. So that's why I asked for way more questions than I needed, because again, some of them are duds. Just like, again, if you get a textbook, if you get a textbook packet with, if you have it, you're signing your student a textbook and it'll come with questions that you can ask the students or other stuff. Those aren't always good either. And some questions weren't as good as others. But so what you do is you ask it to create way more than you need, and then you cherry pick the ones that you feel are the best. There's some true or false questions, and there's some discussion questions. And again, what I'm looking for is, these aren't the ones I'm using in an exam. They're stuff I'm using in low stakes assessments, knowledge checks that are really good for students to do, but take time for us to create. And that's one of the things that I always hear from instructors is you have lots of good ideas, Lane, but when am I possibly ever going to do that? And this is one of those things. Yes.
So there was a question in the chat about, will you share the handout? And yes, I think
Yes,
you will. And then I had a question. So one of the best features on the learning quizzes in Canvas is to have, when people get a wrong response, to have a response that pops up and explains why it's wrong, especially for low stakes. Will it tell you, like, can you ask it to give those reasons why the other responses are wrong?
I want you to do that. We're going to have some time to
Okay,
and you're going to
I'm
do that.
curious
So
if it'll
thank you
do
very
that,
much.
because that would save people a ton of time.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that always recommend to do, but it's one of those things that like, oh yeah, one more thing. Thanks, Lane. Yeah, I needed that today. So I'm just going to answer the questions. As privacy concerned, Maria asks, if I use AI in creating syllabi content, rubric instructions, it feels as we as educators should cite that AI was used in our syllabic content.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is a totally accurate, point to make, that, hey, I used AI. I would, qualify that as well. It's like I would cite AI like I would cite anything else. So if I'm having AI, I'm going to talk about this later, edit my work. So if I largely write it and then I have AI like, hey, I did that for the handout today as well. I was going to talk about that. I wrote all of this and then I was like, you know what? Some of the words are clunky. I could use maybe a thesaurus on this. So I threw it through AI and just said, give me some suggestions, highlight any change that you made. And here, I can do that right now. And here it is. So here's one of the documents. And I said, and this is the stuff that it suggested, right? Integral as required to, and this is the introductory paragraph that we have right there. I didn't use all of the suggestions, but I just was like, oh, I'm interested. Like, oh yeah, some of these are nice and some of these are just wordy and I don't need them. So if you are going to cite, like, if you don't usually cite an editor, if you have your friend edit your work, you don't cite that at the bottom. That's just the editing process. You maybe thank them at the beginning of your book, but that's about the extent of it. So this right here, though, is, again, one of those things where I probably won't cite this because I wrote it. I just use this as a kind of help me edit this and process my writing. And I thought that worked really well. But if I had it like create whole chunks, then I think, yeah, then you're in the realm of that's where you normally would cite something. But again, it's something that I think is not a hard and fast rule. Again, this members get a copy of the handout. Yes, thank you, Peter. I will get that to you right away. I am so sorry I didn't send that out right now. But for what I wanted this to do, and this is kind of, again, I promised activities, and that's what it is right now. What I want us to do is think about, I want us to open up an AI tool. If you don't have a computer, you can use your phone as well. These are on phones as well, or sit next to your neighbor and check that out. And then I want you to go through and create a spreadsheet. See if you can beat me, because I'm sure some of you know how to maybe manipulate Python, or maybe you know something about data that I, as a historian, know nothing about. Again, I trained my calculator because I don't ever use it. Create groups, or have it create rubrics, edit assignment instructions, develop quizzes, things that you would, again, that normally take you time, that you can maybe get a little bit of time savings by doing it with an AI tool. And Sarah had a great question as well. Can I get it to give me a multiple choice questions and then give me some, why this is wrong and why this is right, some feedback? That would be great. I'd love to see what you come up with. I would love to see what everybody comes up with as well. So come up with some ideas, come up with some way that you would like to use AI as a personal assistant, as a teaching assistant, as a person that's helping you out with your class. And then we're going to report back in 10 minutes and see what we found. Okay. And then for everybody online, I'm going to get you in the chat in just a moment. So bear with me as I pull this up, and then I'll walk around and I'll be answering questions as well. Kathy, if you see questions, feel free as well. And right, here we go, everybody. Here is the handout. So I really want to see what everybody comes up with. So thank you, everybody. Let's come back.
Good question.
Yes.
So in the example you showed, the AI defaulted to creating an Excel document.
Yeah.
To what extent, and I know this would differ, but like let's say ChatGPT, can you be as specific to say, design a Microsoft publisher document?
Oh.
Design, you know what I mean? Like, what is it interface?
Well, I do know, like, cause I saw in the Python that it has a little app that it's built into it to like create Excel spreadsheets. So I could see that it's like, okay, running through Excel spreadsheet creator.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't AI that was doing it. It's this tool that they plugged into it. So, which is kind of the fun thing about reading through the Python, because you can see how it's thinking. So I don't know. I mean, it's again, something maybe for you to check out. Say, I would like to create this in a publisher document. Yeah, I was familiar.
I do not believe so. I was just chatting with Kathy with them, like, that doesn't make sense. We'll look at it. And I don't think so, because I've been in a meeting late with people that I may never. So that doesn't, that's not chiming with what's supposed to happen.
Maybe
It's probably you. It's not me, it's you.
it's a user error.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue, me, it's an issue. So. Kathy said she was having problems with it too. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So co-host can't.
Yeah, try that again. I've had some times where it simply wouldn't let me add a second co-host for no reason.
Looks like I have way too much power right now.
Oh, no, so,
So try it again, because you can see that you're host and co-host. Anne's co-host,
wrong one.
because she's Anne. Come on.
And.
So see if you can make me co-host. There you go.
So I
For
can't
some-
do it. Yeah, I can't do it as a co-host. I can't make you one, but as a host, I can.
Right. For some reason, I've just had the system glitch a few times, even as a host, where I'm trying to add a second co-host, and it seems like I have to repeat it a couple times, just occasionally. But
Just occasionally, right?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know, that's, I've never had problems, Kathy, it's probably you.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time I discovered it, you were already presenting, and I was like, oh.
How is it getting anything to
So we have a unique problem in our department where we want to have spreadsheets where it lists out all the students and they're enrolled in our master's program.
Sure.
And then we have a master spreadsheet that shows the classes and there's all.
All right.
We're not spreadsheet people, so,
Right.
so you gotta do pivot table,
Yeah.
power query and things like that. So it's telling us to do that.
Oh, okay. So is it helping you then? Is it?
It's giving us the steps to take. I'm not sure, like I'd have to go in and do them to see if I can actually like.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I do have a question. Is David on the call? Because he was here, he led it last time, right?
Yeah.
Because what I'm kind of curious about is like the spreadsheet interface with Copilot rather than ChatGPT, because like when he showed that PowerPoint thing last time.
Yeah.
Where he used his own personal account to like create a PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if Copilot's good at making like actual Microsoft.
Yes, it uses Designer.
Mm.
So that's, you want to go, if you go to Copilot, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's options for other tools. One of them is Designer. And that's what you want to check out.
Food 12%, I don't think that's accurate. Childcare 12%, that's clearly accurate. Holy cats.
Is it just giving you yes, or is that?
Well, it's using Dave Ramsey's recommendation. So the first thing I asked was, I asked them to give me a chart of childcare, the average childcare expense from 1980 to 2023 with inflation. So it won't give me these middle years. This is the Bing Copilot that we get inside of
Okay.
UWM. So it wouldn't give me the middle years. And then I said, well, give me the middle years. And it gave me some more of the middle years.
Yeah,
3 of them, not many.
you have to beg it sometimes.
Right,
I
and
think
then-
that's- Please.
And then I said, what's the ideal budget? So it's saying that one child is 17,171 for childcare.
What am I doing wrong?
But then when I say an average budget for a family of 4, it says only 12% is childcare. So that would mean people are making an awful lot of money on average.
Yeah,
And that people are saving 15% according to Dave Ramsey, which we know people don't save 15%. So
no.
interesting.
Ideal, meeting ideal. So we got 2 minutes.
Yeah,
so
ideal
3 minutes,
budget,
sorry.
not real budget.
I didn't get that far yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm still playing though.
Okay, good.
Going down the rabbit hole.
That's.
Yeah. We don't let it.
That's why rabbits have their little burrows.
I'm looking at, I don't know, I'm doing it, so.
Oh, cool.
For a class of, fall on data technology.
Awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But I.
I definitely share that. Yes.
But I like to.
Cool.
This is a.
Oh,
Yeah, and.
And the tone, that is the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
Do you write that?
Well, I had,
I usually don't,
Actually.
no, I haven't, it did not occur to me to remind to.
Yeah.
Especially, you
Oh, good.
just kind of,
medium.
I already did.
Thoughtful.
and maybe a little faster too.
Faster,
Yeah.
yeah.
Helps you to set a tone that's more constructive. than-
Yeah, understand.
When you need to read. And I.
Yeah,
The zip search.
This is.
Like article.
it will, anything open source. Yeah, so anything that's like not locked.
Maybe
in,
it's
paywall, firewall.
So I said, what's a real
They will
budget?
have it
And they
for-
said annual or monthly
That's why
expense for food.
even
Ten.
stuff. because it's readily available, like where lots of things.
If you never read it.
That's why when you read it, it sounds like a newspaper now. In terms of language,
For
because that's what.
$1,000.
Who is paying $1,000 for housing?
Academic articles, because it hasn't been trained on academic
You
articles,
do
because
it
academic
higher.
articles are all behind paywall.
Singular.
Well, I
For
don't know,
family of
'cause in
four.
Milwaukee, some of the housing here is very low.
For
But,
4 people.
I mean, but the condition of the housing, you know, we rental.
Oh, cool. Are you
Like in
using
some of
Copilot?
the houses here. that-
And has that been useful?
When they have
Under
taxes split out from
$100,000.
it.
Yeah, good, because Copilot is still like,
Oh,
that's one of the,
No,
there's
that's
still,
housing tax.
that, it's a little bit better than Gemini. Gemini's had some big bugs lately, but yeah.
Or, federal.
Renee, how about you? How you doing?
Okay, I had never done the transform this to text, so I was practicing with that first.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'm trying to, I just asked for some discussion questions.
Oh, cool.
And I'm going back. Would
Yeah.
you share just some of the prompts you asked? Because that's where I'm not,
Yes.
yeah, and that is
That,
here.
those are all, yes, that will be great. I
Okay.
will-
Just because I'm like,
I don't know, that's
just
the.
helps to kind of see like,
See what
what
other
are
people
you
have done.
asking? Yes.
Right, so we're gonna bring it back together, everybody. I know you just had a chance to play with it. But I wanted to hear a little bit about what you were all doing. I did have a question from Renee that was like, what prompts were you using, Lane? If you are online, this is already available to you. You can just click on any of the links that are under samples. So under the lab experiments, there are samples there. Those will have the entire chat dialogue that I had for some of the examples that I just already gave. And then also just some other ones as well that we haven't covered yet either. So, one of the cool things that you could do is, create those case studies. And so I have two different examples of case studies, one from the nursing department and one for social work. I know nothing about nursing or social work, so it could be totally off, but that's just me. The other thing as well is that one of the things that's really nice, especially if you're using case studies in a classroom setting, is maybe having a picture associated with it to help them like, hey, look at the picture and see what you can glean off of that as well. To understand, the social work situation that you're in, it will create pictures based on those case studies that you have described as well. So you can put a face to the name, or that you can put a kind of a scenario to what it is you're trying to have a conversation about. So if you're interested in the prompts that I've done, those are all on the samples. If you're in here, the QR code will get you the digital version, and then you can click off of that. So I heard some really cool things that people were doing. Jean, you've already raised your hand. Please go.
Okay, so this is time for disclosure. I've never actually gotten a ChatGPT account, so in this conversation I did. And I tried doing something simple, and that is to fix assignment instructions.
Okay.
And I think this is hopefully, maybe everybody is ahead of the game as far as AI is concerned. But if you would like to see a beginner's thing, I'm happy to share my screen if you would like.
I just gave you co-host privileges, so please.
Okay. I will do that then. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I'll zoom in.
So I followed your instruction and I talked to it as if it was my friend. So I need help to clarify the instructions for an assignment. And I plopped admittedly, what I had in Word document looked better than what this was, but still the words are there. And ChatGPT came back a few seconds later with something that in my estimation looks significantly better. And then I thought, okay, that's fine. And I quickly realized, oh, the lovely AI forgot to put in the points. So I said, yeah, let's fix that. And it did. This took me about as much time as it did to apply for the account and go to my other email to fix. And I dare say this looks a whole lot better. So this is the first time that I could demonstrate to myself that for certain purposes, there might be some use for this. And I mean this with all respect. I've been to lots of these AI talks, but there was a level of complication and sophistication involved. The moment you tell me I need to read Python to fix it, I'm already thinking, yeah, maybe not.
No.
So anyway, so this was a warm-up opportunity for everyone, even the non-believers, to say, oh, okay, there might be a real point to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That was really helpful. Also online, I see Mark mentioned that he tried to have it improve a rubric. It was a little messy, did not really get the table set up, so trying to help it along. However, there's some interesting rewording. Mark, did you want to put anything to show us that, what you had or what you used? Oh, and Kathy gave, oh, can you put this, oh, there we go.
Yeah, it
okay.
was one of those, at least whenever I do rubrics at first, I ask create a rubric for evaluating essays, and it just gave it to me text-based criterion 1, bullet, criterion 2. So everything I wanted, but then I next said, can you put this in rubric form? And then it gave me a nice table with columns that rows with like criterion, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, 1 point.
Yes, you have to
And
be very.
you could tweak from there,
Right. You have to be very literal, right? Like if you want a table, you have to say, I want a table. It won't assume. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Oh,
should
who is-
just, this is Mark. I should just say that when I did that, thank you, Catherine, it improved some minor rewords that were probably worth thinking about once it came up, because it was already pretty close to what I wanted. So undoubtedly cleaned it up and made it more consistent. I have to take a look at it. So.
How about thank you very much, Mark and Kathy. Yes.
In our intensive English program, we have students who are at different levels in a class because we don't have a lot of big enrollment, so we have to combine levels. And the teachers really struggle how to differentiate, the work that they're doing with the different levels in the class. So I took a text, at a certain level, and I said, simplify this or adapt it to this other level, like a B1 level from a C1 level. And it did that, and I said, okay, create, comprehension questions, glossary, etc. And it did all of that so that the students could read the same text, but at the appropriate levels for them. And then they could have class discussions about the text because they've both been able to read it at their appropriate level. And then we're able to assess them on their comprehension because it could make the quiz off the leveled reading. So
This is something you've done already.
I showed a teacher that last week, and in literally 3 minutes, we had different texts, like we had discussion board assignments, essay prompts, multiple choice quizzes, in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty amazing, and it's think about how that changes differentiation.
Yes.
When you have to do that in a class with multiple levels of students.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing that. Awesome. Anybody else have something to share what they were doing just now or what they've been doing just recently in the past? Yes.
Well, in the past, I'll just say that I asked ChatGPT to write my AI policy for my syllabus, which it did a great job. I interjected some of my own comments into that, and I definitely told students that ChatGPT had written, they could see the parts where I was weighing in and they knew the parts ChatGPT did, and that took, a second. Which was really nice. But for today, I played around with creating case studies for a class I'll be teaching in the fall. So I gave it, the class is a sociology class called Data, Technology, and Society. So using some of the tips I got today, I said to ChatGPT, you are a college instructor for a sociology course entitled Data and Society. Please create a case study illustrating both positive and negative features of artificial intelligence in American society in 2024. This case study will be used to facilitate a discussion among students on this topic. So it actually gave me, it actually chose a case around the criminal justice system, which we do read about in the class. So without me even asking for that, that's what it picked. And then I experimented with my second one, trying to give it more specifics. So I don't just, I told it more of a topic and it gave me kind of another one. So pretty good. I mean, I'm not saying I would use it completely verbatim, but it was definitely a good starting point.
Yeah, because sometimes the hardest part is just starting that blank sheet, right? And now you have that filled out. Now you can edit and improve it. Awesome. Very good. Anybody else? I've been hearing a lot of things. I was walking around. I was seeing some really cool things that everyone is doing. Yeah, Anna.
I really like using ChatGPT when I need help with my tone.
So I had a student who kind of generically reached out for support, and I was not in the mood to like craft a kind and nurturing email. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, I need to send a follow-up email to a student who reached out for support. What is a kind way to ask? What do you need help with a supportive, caring tone? And it did a great job. And I could have sat there for 15 minutes and tried to like edit myself into a kinder tone, but it was really quick. Wow.
Well, especially when you get those emails in the middle of the night, right? And it's not like when I'm fresh and happy and I've had my cup of coffee and I'm just ready to sit down and I'm gonna answer this. No, it's not. You can answer them now. It's at night. You have 5 minutes before you need to go to bed. And that's awesome.
And then I also have been talking with students who are like, I have this big study guide and I'm having a hard time studying from it and then answering application level questions that I'm seeing on exams. And so I said, well, why don't you just start taking chunks of your completed study guide that you've spent time on, dump it into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me some NCLEX style questions where all of them contain scenarios and four multiple choice options, and use that to quickly get practice with this content in a way that's forcing you to apply it and not just read through it.
And did they report back to you?
They haven't reported back yet, but they were very excited to try that method.
Yes. And you used you gave them some specific language as well, like I have no idea what that means.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of giving the student the tips of tell it who to be and what you want to get from it.
Right. So giving it some specific ideas of how to do. Wow. So having them take the data and then do some application stuff instead of, maybe at midnight trying to contact a tutor, which doesn't exist, to do that before it, help them with that. They can use ChatGPT as a tutor to help them through some of those questions. Excellent. Thank you very much, Anne. Be curious. I want to hear more about how that story ends. Anybody else? The beginning story, like the ones if you just began using ChatGPT, or like if you've used Copilot or Gemini as well, some of the responses I've been using.
So
Sarah.
I used Copilot, but it only let me use 4 before I had to log on. So I left my phone in my office. And then I moved to Gemini and I said, I'm teaching a work-life class, come up with 10 logos for me to put on the syllabus to make it more attractive.
Cool.
And I came up with some interesting logos.
Do you have are you on the Zoom call?
No, I'm not, but if people want to see them, it didn't give me 10, it only gave me 4, but they're interesting.
Sometimes you have to beg. I have noticed that. Like, please, I would like 10. Oh, sure, let me help you out.
But even thinking about if you wanted like a quick logo or graphic on an assignment, that you could do that very quickly.
Pretty quickly. And I was using Copilot.
Mhm.
And are you using the Copilot Pro
Or no, this is Gemini.
or Gemini? So you're using Gemini Pro or Gemini?
Oh, that requires money.
Okay, all right. Very good. Anybody else?
I use it a lot I teach a freshman math class, and there are times like I need to write review problems. I just don't want to have to do it. So I'll take things and use the Alex system, or there are things that they're struggling with. I'll take the problem and pop it in and say, create 6 problems that are like this in answer key and show the steps to it. So it can take 6 and 3 of them are useful. I mean, some of them are way too off base, but it just saves me the time of having to write review problems for the next day or things to launch the next class with. It's just a time saver.
How do you get like the equations? Like, is that something you have?
I just type them in there.
You just type them in there, just like straight, like you don't have to use any special
Oh, this is like solving systems of linear equations, come up with real life application problems. I don't want to have to sit and think about this and that. So you can tell it to do it. It kicks. I usually ask it to do 5 or 6 if I want 2 or 3.
A rancher has 50 cattle. He would like to move these cattle into a pen by such and such. Okay.
I truck have someone else do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing, you just need that maybe for the start of the class next time for just kind of review something from the day before.
Okay.
It just saves a lot of time having to write those things.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else had something else to share about what they've been doing with AI, even just beyond what we've been doing in here as well?
Have you tried using headers much, Lane?
Talk to me about headers.
All right, I'll just put it in the chat.
You can show us too. You are a co-presenter.
Sure. Okay, hold on one second.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I was also working on a tech support problem, so I don't want someone else's tech support problem to show up here. Okay.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, all right. So with headers, I'll share my screen in a second. I'm just trying to get to where I need to be. I did a presentation on this fairly recently. Okay. All right, I'll share my screen. So when you're doing prompts, because I know what you're talking about sometimes you just have to beg just like to get it to do what you want, just like with the rubric situation a while ago, where I was saying to Mark, well, it's not giving it to him in the format he wants. So it's a little harder to break down, and headers help you do that. So it's this hashtag and then the prompt. I put these together in like Word, and this signifies that hashtag prompt, hashtag instructions. It tells ChatGPT what's following is the prompt, what's following is the instruction. So you can put them all together like that. So for instance, I put this document in the chat. I put together a number of headers. So for instance, Mark, I think had asked again about rubrics. All right, let me see. Rubric. There. So I just put in like hash grading rubric, and then I wrote in a prompt, please give me a rubric for an essay, blah, blah, blah. And it immediately generated the whole thing in rubric form. So it gave a little more, it gave me a little bit more of the specific output I wanted. And you can put in a number of these all at once. So anyway, just if anybody's interested, I put in what these do, examples of like what you'd put in for this prompt. But anyway, you can put in more than one. And I found that it helps give me the response that's a little more tailored. So anyway, just worth a try.
Oh, Kathy, are these like a list of prompts that have been like ChatGPT or OpenAI created, or are they ones that you just came up with that you found were useful?
OpenAI created, and
Okay.
then I tested them, and I had done research in this initially, and I saw people saying headers work for them, and I got a few out in the wild, and then I thought, wait, I'm going to ask ChatGPT what kind of headers, and I started asking it things like what headers work best for you, and I got these. And I started trying them, and yeah, they worked. And then I do follow-up questions a lot of times. So I will actually put follow-up question and then put some information, revision, feedback on the initial response. Anyway, just a consideration. I found them to be a little more specific because this is, a computer, and it tends to just like this hash prompt or hash instructions. It's like, it's not unclear to the system. ChatGPT, anything past this is context, treat it as such. Anything as this is my objective. Anything here is your role. You know what I mean? So there's anything after this is the kind of format I want your output to be, and so on. So anyway, just if you're interested, I've got this document I threw in the chat.